Karakia, so I won't repeat that. We have apologies from Ms. Arnott Nene and Mr. McDonald, and we should all acknowledge we've just got the recording thing up. It's being recorded. Okay, so apologies have been received from Ms. Arnott Nene and Mr. McDonald, and we thank Mr. Mason, who has joined us despite being overseas. So thank you for that. So I'm going to move that the apologies be noted, and I will ask John to second that. That's okay, John? Thank you. Now I would draw the attention of members to the conflicts of interest policy and the need to disclose any interest in any item on the agenda of the meeting. And is there anybody who wishes to make a disclosure? You know, this would include anyone who had children or family who were at the university and paying fees, or who was taking a class themselves. I think anybody, that should be disclosed. Julia.
Yes, I have a daughter at the university who's paying fees.
Okay, so we'll note that. Thank you very much.
As a student representative, I am a student, so I also pay fees.
Yes, right. Hello. Candice, you're here twice. Somehow I've got you twice. I don't know. It's all good.
And muted, Candice.
One's muted. One's muted. One's not. I know. What? You are muted now. We can't hear you. But I think you're declaring a conflict of interest as a student. All right. Great. Thank you, Candice. All right. Thank you, everybody, for that. All right, now we're going to move, so I'm going to move that those be endorsed, and I will ask, why don't I, oh, sorry, Frank, you have your hand up.
I was just going to say I've got 3 children at the university paying fees.
Oh, thank you, Frank, but that's good to hear. That's good to hear, but as you know, council member, I don't need you, but that is really good to hear. Very good. Please. Yeah, okay. I will ask Gemma to, I'm going to move those. I'll ask Gemma to second. Okay. Now I'm going to move to the minutes of the council from the 26th of August. Are there any questions or comments on those minutes? No questions or comments. Okay, then I'm going to move that those minutes be taken as read and confirmed, and I'm going to ask Dawn to Adrian. Oh no, it's not. It's just me. I thought it was. Thank you, Dawn. Okay, there's no matters arising that are not dealt with elsewhere. Okay, and now we'll move to the Vice Chancellor's report, and I'll invite Dawn to speak to that report.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chancellor, and I'll do my usual thing of making sure that everybody's had a chance to read the report, but noting that, as always, there are things to supplement during the time from which it was submitted. I want to start today just by acknowledging the achievements of our Blues Award winners, and to thank the Chancellor for attending that award ceremony and to making those awards. It was a really substantial and significant ceremony for us this year for lots of reasons, but I just wanted to start with that piece of good news and congratulations. I also wanted to note that today the embargo on the World University Rankings, the Times Higher Education, were released. And I'm really pleased to say that the university has held its ground. So in an increasingly competitive landscape where there's more than 300 additional universities being ranked, the university has managed to sustain 152 in that rankings from 150 last year. And that's an increase actually in our percentile uplift in terms of those rankings, given the extra number of universities that have been ranked. I do want to say what's disappointing is that this is not something that is generally reflected in the media. And you'll see that today, a number of articles which talk about the demise of the rankings in universities, New Zealand universities. And it's fair to say that of the other 7 universities, at least 2 of them have dropped again, and many of them are struggling to stay in the top 500. And that's been the case for a while. I actually think we need to acknowledge that what we're achieving, given that the group of 8, 7 of the group of 8 have dropped, 50% of the UK Russell Group have dropped. For us to maintain our position, it's outstanding. And given that we continue to remain number 5 in the QS sustainability rankings in the world, number 13 in the Times Higher Education impact rankings in the world, and number 65 in the QS, and continue to improve in other rankings such as the US World News, I actually think that this is a really important message to get out to our community, because this is the work of our staff and our community and our students achieving this. Really, it's an important piece of communication that we need to develop and to think about better. And I'm really looking forward to presenting the ranking strategy to the council in December, as we always do in December, a review of our rankings. And I think you'll see not only where we're still maintaining and improving year on year our rankings, but our strategy to continue that trajectory. We know it's important for many, many reasons. I think the other thing I would point to is, having just spent quite a bit of time travelling overseas with our ARD team and working through alumni events and meeting with some of our high profile donors, and also having the opportunity to talk to people following the UN Global Assembly in New York, and a number of people in the UK, meeting with our High Commissioner and others, that clearly we are still viewed as a top performing university and really well regarded, had great conversations with our high profile donors. But global sentiment at the moment is actually really challenging for universities. And I picked this up with my peers in the Russell Group and across the group of 8 and across the globe at the Times Higher meeting earlier this week, where the future of universities and continued relevance and purpose was a topic of discussion and continues to be. And so we're not alone in being challenged nationally around the global sentiment of the sector. In that regard, a bit of an update on the reviews. So we had the opportunity to talk to the Prime Minister recently on this, particularly on the Science System Advisory Group review. Now, you'll have noticed that that was due to be reported into Parliament actually in September. It hasn't been reported. There are, I think, some questions remaining around not simply the outcomes and recommendations of the report, but the resourcing of those and the significant change that will be required around the funding of the science system should some of those recommendations be adopted. It looks like, and having spoken to Sir Peter Gluckman recently, it looks like the review of higher education funding and the scope of that expanded, as you know, to cover a range of issues, including the size, shape and overall composition of the whole sector, number of universities, governance, all of those things. That is slowed down. It was due to be reported in February, but that's looking like it's going to be, unattainable at this stage, because we've now got a second round of meetings with the advisory group. They've already had one round of meetings with each of the universities and drafted a report, but now want to talk further on 1 or 2 issues, and that includes the funding models and the funding mechanisms. Those meetings won't take place before November, December, so it's highly unlikely that we'll see anything going through Parliament before middle of next year. And I say that because, of course, we have our funding that's been agreed until the end of 2025 was really a temporary stopgap until the reviews were complete. But we now know that it's going to be at least 26, 27 before we have any indications of outcomes of those reviews and implications for funding into those budgets in the future. And so we remain in that uncertain position. We know that where we are essentially until the end of 2025 from government funding point of view, of course, we're working hard on our own internal strategy and diversifying our own income streams. I then will just finally say, of course, that Council is very well aware that we've been in a process with the Senate in working through concerns and questions around the CFT. That's on the agenda today. I'm looking forward to having that conversation and to addressing a motion that was put before Senate in the August meeting. I think I'll leave it there, Chancellor, and happy to take any questions or comments on the overall report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the Vice-Chancellor on the report? Okay. I would just like to say that the Blues Awards was a fabulous ceremony, absolutely magnificent. The people who organised it are to be really congratulated. It was also held in B201. As Adrian said, you know, that's a great name we have for that building, B201, the new atrium, and it was an absolutely fabulous venue. And also as part of the Blues Awards, at the end of the Blues Awards, we acknowledged Alan Shaker, who has been the AUSA president for the last 2 years, and there was a haka done for him, and it was a very special acknowledgement. So it was a great event, and I was delighted to be there. And I got my picture with Teresa Setafano, you know, who's the rugby sevens player. So Julia, you had a question, and you're on mute, and then Kathy.
Just a really minor question for the Vice-Chancellor about the report. I noticed we're developing a new engagement survey tool, which enables us to take multiple pulse surveys. And I just wanted to ask a question whether, so I'm assuming that's surveying staff, and whether we're considering building feedback loops back to staff in those engagement processes.
Thanks, Julia. Just on the engagement surveys and the pulse surveys, we already do have engagement feedback loops, and you'll be aware from some of the previous work that was done, at least across the faculties, that those feedback loops not only include providing opportunities for working our way through the results and the outcomes, both the narrative and the data with staff, but also taking feedback and then actually looking at recommendations and action plans going forward. Now, that's not just about across the academic staff, that's across all staff. And that will continue. And in fact, we've had feedback on the feedback loops that we also need to take into account, Julia.
Okay, Kathy.
Still, I just thought we should probably record our thanks to Dawn and the whole of the academic and support team on achieving those great results in the rankings. I thought it was just appropriate to acknowledge.
Absolutely. You know, that's very good. Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. I agree with that. Yeah. And and if you, I'm happy to propose that and you'll second that. That's great. Thank you. Absolutely, because it is an enormous achievement. And we need to get the word out. All right, if there are no further questions, we'll move to the reports of council committees. And the next item on the agenda is the Finance Committee. Now, that's the Finance Committee minutes from Part A. Are there any questions on that? On those minutes? Any questions, comments on those minutes? All right, I will move that those minutes, I'll move that they be received and ask Hala to, actually, I apologise, I haven't moved that the Vice-Chancellor's report be noted, and I'll have Kathy second that. Okay, right. Okay, then I'm moving to the Finance Committee minutes. There's been no comments, so I'm going to move that those be received and ask Carla to second.
Happy to.
And okay, all right. Now we have the main item there relates to the domestic student fees and for 2025 and the international student fees for 2026. There is a paper there. I will, Dawn, if you would like to, I don't know if you'd like to introduce this, but otherwise we'll turn it over to Tim.
Happy to go to Tim in the interests of time, Chancellor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tēnā koutou. So thank you. Good afternoon. I'll take the paper as read, but I'll provide a summary of the different elements and then invite questions at the end if that suits the council. Obviously, we start off by considering the overall backdrop and relevant context in which we're setting or proposing to set these fees and the considerations we've made, recognising that the economy remains tight in New Zealand, reflecting the measures to bring inflation under control, noting today that the Reserve Bank has reduced the OCR by 50 basis points. Obviously, the financial sustainability considerations for ourselves as well as our peers are of great importance, noting also the uncertainty as we await the outcome from the two reviews that are currently underway for the sector. Considerations for the alignment to our strategy, looking at the market and our sector as a whole, government policy, particularly a stance around public spending, and also considering the effects to students and their perspectives given the continuing cost of living pressures that we're all seeing. Also noting that in terms of the regulated fees for the domestic funding, so the paper is addressing the component of domestic fee that the students are responsible for paying. This is governed by the AMFN, or the annual maximum fee movement, that's set by government. Since we reviewed this with the Finance Committee a few weeks ago, this has been confirmed now as 6% for next year. And that goes alongside the tuition subsidy, the DQ7, or what used to be called the SAC, which has been confirmed at 2.5% for next year. When we look at those two components of fees, the regulated elements, we note that those have not maintained parity with inflation. And in particular, as we came out of that low inflation period leading up to COVID, there is quite a divergence that built from 2020 onwards, and that's outlined in a graph in the paper, with basically an 11% gap now between inflation and the accumulated increases on these domestic regulated components.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to take questions, as we deal with each part, or anyway?
Yeah, we can do that. It may be easier for the council. I'll just finish with a little bit more in terms of domestic fees. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of work to maintain quality for students, which includes some elements of investment and support, hardship support, as well as scholarships, focusing very much on student experience. And noting also that during the COVID period, we also took a softened approach, if you like, to certain aspects of that during that period. The paper also compares the domestic fees against the New Zealand sector. It's a difficult one to do on an apples for apples basis, but generally we are fairly well aligned as a sector, And there's a specific example that the paper pulls out in terms of science fees, where you can see that they are, 6 of the universities are clustered at a fairly similar level, with two below. So the paper is recommending that we implement the full 6% maximum increase that has been approved as the AM/FM for this year, and also applying the same increase to the regulated micro-credential courses. So I'll pause there and invite any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions? I mean, Hala?
I guess not much of a question, but more of sort of what we spoke about in Finance Committee, since the minutes aren't here. But I think it was really helpful that in Finance Committee we did discuss a lot more about sort of the university's like financial environment, as well as just like what AM/FM is and things like that, so that we can understand where the 6% is coming from. I think it's important to look at, in past years when Massey didn't sort of increase it to the maximum of what AM/FM was, they sort of struggled more financially. And so I think at face value, it doesn't look great that we're increasing it to 6% compared to what we have been increasing it in past. But I think it's important to look at it sort of in the wider spectrum to understand why it's been increased the way that it has. And I think that's just important to give a little bit more context as to why it happened, and sort of why I had shown my support in Finance Committee. Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's a very good point, because obviously it is significantly more than it has been increased in the past, but it is very, as you say, reflective of the financial conditions that we find ourselves facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's unfortunate, like, with the cost of living crisis and everything, that it has come down to this. But I think the messaging to students is really important about why we have increased it to this. And I think that's the only thing that I would definitely ask, is that we would be very transparent in our decision making.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions on this part of the paper? No? Okay, Tim, perhaps you'd proceed.
Okay. No, thank you, Hala. Those are important points, and the minutes, the Part A table does indicate the projected surplus for this year, and as we've been noting, our projections or expectations going forward are not where we'd like them to be, which is why we've also instigated the improvement plan. The 45
and I think
million
actually probably really important to say not only not where we'd like them to be, but not where they are required to be by the TEC.
In terms of maintaining the low risk rating, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maintaining our financial viability. And our
Moving on. Yeah, moving on now to the international markets. The proposal here, now this relates to the year after next. We always do this a year in advance. So the already agreed increase for 2025 is 4%. We are proposing a 5% increase to international fees for 2026 and a 4% study abroad increase. In terms of maintaining real value, this has our cumulative increase to the international fees over the same period that we refer to them for domestic since the beginning of COVID has actually maintained parity with CPI. We've also looked across the overall market, both in terms of New Zealand and our positioning there, and also importantly with the Group of 8 in Australia. And we're looking to maintain positioning which is just higher than the New Zealand sector and just below the Group of 8. Also recognising that we have strategic objectives to balance diversification as well as we look to build our international cohort going forward, expanding on that, building on the reliance that we've had up until now, mainly on China, and maintaining a watch also on what's going on with the Australian situation and the impacts there that could be quite drastic depending what happens with the elections next year. But obviously, there's a capacity issue. We're keeping a watching brief on that, and there could well be some flow on opportunity, perhaps, in terms of how New Zealand is perceived against that situation, but also the similar trends that have been emerging in UK, Canada as well. So those are generally the considerations, and we feel that a 5% increase is an appropriate level to apply for 2026. So again, I'll pause for questions.
I'm not, is Hala?
Yeah, sorry for another question. I guess when I'm looking at the readings, the main thing that it looks like we've looked at when considering that the increase is the world rankings and where we rank compared to other universities and how much they what their fees are. Do we we are just confirming that we do have like evidence that international students, that is what they value the most when they're choosing different universities, because it's good to show that we are currently above the trend line. That means that our fees are lower than what we are ranking. But yeah, I just wanted to confirm that that is the main reason why international students would choose University of Auckland.
That's certainly a factor. The table we were comparing the rankings. The table itself was looking at the New Zealand universities and the group of 8 Australia, and just comparing their particular rankings against the average fees. Not necessarily suggesting there's a correlation, but in terms of the way students do look at this university and potential enrolments, ranking is an important factor in that.
Can I ask Frank to comment as well? Because what we know, Hala, is that international students will probably, first of all, with their parents often think about which country where they want to be. There's lots of parameters around where and those decisions. And then once they get to that point, they're looking for the best university in that place geographically. And so, if they're starting to think about Oceania, Australasia, they'll certainly look for the best universities in that region after they've decided that's where they want to be for a variety of reasons: proximity to family, safety, a whole range of things, experience. Frank, I don't know if you wanted to comment, but it is a very good question around the international student fee particularly.
No, I agree absolutely, Dawn. I think we've got plenty of data to show that's exactly the way that students go about choosing where to go, international students.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so Tim, then I guess the next point is around the compulsory student services, or the micro-credentials. Compulsory student services, the main point, isn't it?
We've done international. The English Language Academy is just part of that as well, and you'll note that there's a range of increases on the different programs from between 2% up to 7%. So I'll move on to the compulsory services, student services fee. So again, this requires us to go through a consultation process with the students, which has happened. There is a series of discussions and feedback meetings with the students' representatives during this process, and you'll note that there's been some feedback in terms of how they feel the allocation of funding across the particular categories of spend are balanced, and where they like to see less or more. But we've consulted around a maximum increase of 4%. We've completed that process, and Also, I'll just reference the appendix where we look at the movements in cost against inflation, where we're showing an overall movement of 3.7%, noting that people costs would be around 4.4% as a key component of that cost movements that we're looking at next year. So the 4% that we're proposing to increase is reflected of those cost drivers, but also the fact that it's proposed that the AUSA will take on some support for the growing demand for advocacy services that would be delivered as part of this suite of services covered by the fee. And we've included in that allowance for the funding for them to be able to do that, which would otherwise be undertaken by the university. So again, I'll pause there for questions.
Yeah, so Gemma, question?
Thank you, Tim. I just wanted to reiterate what I said at Finance Committee, that I appreciate that there has been consultation on the total amount that the fee would be increasing. I think that's a really great change that has occurred. I also wanted to clarify in my day-to-day, professional staff life, it's come to light, at least to me, that AUSA, their additional funds were consulted on with students, and I just wanted to clarify because the paper suggests that still needed to happen. That was a discussion we had. So if that's already happened, that's great. But I just wanted to understand the status of that.
Yeah, my understanding is that has happened.
Okay.
I can see other nods there. Yes, that has indeed happened.
Excellent. That's even better news. And then I guess my final question, this might be looking to the future a little bit, is that we do see trends over time in the levy and in terms of conflicts. I used to run the levy survey, and we see things around wanting an increased contribution to health, safety and wellbeing and things of that nature. What is our mechanism that we can slowly change our funding priorities or investment over time, acknowledging that that's not a fast change that can happen?
Yeah, no, I think that's an important part of the consultative process and the way that Campus Life work with the student representatives. I think flagging up the changes in views in terms of the weightings of across this range of services. Obviously, it does take time to make adjustments to those. So I think that's the important part also, that we can then factor in those changing needs, if you like, or demands in terms of the planning that Campus Life do put together.
Thank you, Tim. No, that's good. Okay. So is there any more general questions about the fee increase? Obviously, this is a large increase for the students, but I think we all understand the rationale for it and the need for it. And also I think that there, I think it's really important, I think, and I think that AUSA and I think, the student services and that sort of thing are aware of all this, that there is quite a lot of assistance available to students, like hardship grants and that sort of thing, we should just make sure. Obviously we know that, I know it's something that that university makes sure that students are aware of. So, as a council, we can be comfortable that there are some ways to assist students, in hardship. Hello.
Just on that point, I was just wanting to sort of clarify that with these increased fees, is there an increase in maybe the hardship funds, or is the quantity of funds that we are able to give out to students increase, or are they increased or are they the same?
We do provide for funding for hardship, and so there's there's other funds available through TC and the Student Association. So we monitor that. They're not always fully drawn. And I'd also highlight the the scholarships and the increasing value that we do allow for to support scholarships and the various types of scholarship that students can apply for.
Carla, I think the concern I have is that often our hardship funds are underspent. So I mean, we can probably work more efficiently on making that information widely available, but we do work a lot through the various student communities to make sure that's known. But yeah, there are funds there available.
Yeah, that's great, just to provide a little bit more context. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have a number of resolutions here. I'm going to take them all as one since this is an important step. I'm going to read out all of the resolutions, but I'm going to just put them all as one, and I'm going to move them. Okay, so I'm going to move that one. Obviously, the report be received and noted, and that one, council approve the attached domestic fees schedule for 2025. 2, approve the attached international fees schedule for 2026, including the English Language Academy fee schedule. 3, authorize the Vice-Chancellor to assign any new programs, including government-funded micro-credentials or programs becoming newly available to international students in 2026, to an appropriate band to enable offers to be made during the recruitment cycle and report these decisions back to Council. 4, approve the compulsory student services fee at $9.24 per point, GST inclusive, a 4% increase, and the associated changes to the student fee schedule A. And 5, approve the attached other fees schedule for 2025. So I'm going to move all of those resolutions, and I'm going to ask Candice to second those for me. Thank you. And I'm going to ask everybody to show by a raise your hands to show that you are voting in favour of this resolution. Have I got everybody? Yes, I believe I have everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to the Audit and Risk Committee, to the minutes of Part A there, and ask if anybody has any questions or comments around the Audit and Risk minutes. Okay, all right. If that's no comments, I'm going to move that the Audit and Risk Part A minutes be received and ask Jonathan to second that. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Now, instead of taking the Senate matters next, I'm going to leave the Senate matters to the end when they can be dealt with at the same time as the curriculum framework transformation paper. And so instead, I'm going to move now to there's correspondence referred by the Chancellor. There is none for this part of the. Julia, did you have a question? Are you good?
There is an aspect of the Senate matters that doesn't comfortably fit in with the curriculum framework transformation. Is that something that I can raise here?
Yes, but I would actually rather, I do appreciate that, and I see it is in 6.2, but I'll move them around when I get to them, but I prefer just to deal with the whole of Senate when we get to that. Okay, so then we have 8.1, we have the seal has been attached there. And if are there any questions around anything that the seal has been attached to? No? Okay. Well, I will move that the attaching of the seal to the listed documents be noted and ask Gemma to second that. Thank you. And then now I'm going to leave 8.2 still, and I'm going to move to the elections. I'm essentially moving the Senate matters to the end of the meeting. So I'm now moving to the elections, and I'm going to turn the chair over to Kathy Quinn because it's around the appointment of the alumni representative on council, and I'm going to mute my screen I'm going to mute and I'm going to go and check on my crock pot.
Okay, and I'll send you a text. Everyone, so we're now dealing with two things. One, to reappoint Cecilia Tarrant for a 4-year term commencing on 1 January 2025 to 31 December 2028 to fill the position in relation to an alumni member of the university. And the second is to, in relation to the appointment of Cecilia as the Chancellor for a further 1-year term, I believe it is. Is there any questions or comments on that? Yes, Julia.
I just have a question. I just went and looked at the council appointment statute, and it said the council is to resolve to appoint one person being an alumni of the University of Auckland following a call for expressions of interest from alumni. So just wanted to check, because I couldn't see in the papers that we've followed that process.
I can't comment on whether or not there's been any expressions of interest. I'm sorry, Julia. I'm not aware of any. Do you know, Dawn?
Adrian can comment on this one.
Yeah, so that's in the first instance. So when we would have appointed Cecilia in the first instance, that would have been the case. And I think we're able to extend Wendy, aren't we, in terms of the rules. I don't have them in front of me, but I'm happy to confirm that for you, Julia. But that's my understanding. So if Cecilia's term was ending, then so she wasn't able to be extended, then we would have to go out for another expression of interest. But at the moment, she is able to be extended for another term within the rules of Schedule 11 of the ETA. So normally, you're allowed 12 years, I think, 3 terms. But because the Education and Training Act came in partway through Cecilia's term, she actually gets a little bit longer, which is also provided for in the ETA. So we're not looking for a new member. We're looking for an extension of her term.
Gosh, I did read the council appointment statute, and I read it as being that she could be re-elected or reappointed, but so it just says the council is to resolve to appoint one person being an alumnus of the University of Auckland following a call for expressions of interest from alumnus, and then it goes on to say that you can have 3 periods of no more than 4 years. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't know we're going to resolve it here, are we?
But she's able to have a little bit longer than that, Julia, because of the change in the ETA, which specifically provides for her, if she was partway through a term, that she can have another 3 terms. So she's still within that clause. Sorry, anyway, I can draw the threads for you after the meeting.
So just to make that fair enough to raise it, Julia, it does sound like we're able to vote on this matter now on the basis that she's been extended compared to if we're looking for a brand new alumnus. But I'm happy for you to take that offline with Adrian afterwards. And if we have an issue, we can discuss it. So I was going to put that resolution. Can I have a second? Oh, thank you, Candice. Thank you, Jonathan. And can I have a show of hands for with a vote of people in favour? That looks very clear to me. Thank you. Can I also, so as we're doing it at the same time, deal with the appointment of Celia's Chancellor for another year? It's just a yearly appointment. Again,
I think I need to call for nominations.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Andrew, would you like to do that?
I'll call for nominations, and can I assume that you will nominate?
Yes, I will nominate Cecilia.
Is there a seconder? Carla?
Thank you.
So are there any other nominations?
No.
So as there's only one nomination, then I declare Cecilia to be elected as Chancellor.
Excellent. I'll text her to tell her to come back. Wait 1 second. I have texted Cecilia, so hopefully she's on her way back. Oh, there you are, Cecilia. Congratulations, you've been elected on both matters.
Thank you very much.
I will
appreciate it.
depart while you deal with my position, and you can text me.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're now dealing with the election of the Pro-Chancellor for 2025. The person currently holding this position is Kathy Quinn. Once again, this is an election for so effectively the Pro-Chancellor, the Deputy Chancellor for a year. I'm going to move. Kathy is still willing to be in this position, and so I'm going to move that Kathy. I'm going to move her nomination for that position, and I'll seek a seconder for that nomination, please. Thank you very much, John. Okay, so John is seconding that. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the position? Okay, if with no other nominations for the position, I will declare Kathy elected and invite her to come back. Yeah. All right. Okay, good. So then with that, I'm now going to go back to the report of Senate and the Senate matters. Now, obviously, there is the curriculum framework curriculum. Congratulations, Kathy. You've been re-elected as the Pro-Chancellor. Great. There is the...
Can I just interrupt and say thank you very much to both yourself and Kathy for being willing to stand again. Thank you.
Wouldn't miss it, Dawn. So anyway, thank you. We've obviously got, we have the curriculum framework transformation paper in 8.2. We also have the report of Senate, the minutes from Senate of the 27th of August that deal with that same matter. And then there is the report of Senate from the 16th of September. Now, Julia, you had mentioned, and there obviously are other matters on the 16th of September minutes. So why don't we, if you think it would make it easier, why don't we deal with those matters in respect of the 16th of September now? And I don't know whether, Dawn, there was anything you wanted to say about the 16th of September meeting before.
Well, we've got two separate things on the 16th of September. One does relate to the CFT that I wanted to speak to, which of course relates to the August meeting as well.
Right, so we'll deal with that.
I was going to say, let's separate those out.
Yeah.
I think they are all part of that same conversation. But otherwise, I think you've got the minutes of the 16th of September. We had quite a long debate around the work that we've been doing on the free speech policy. Council is very aware we've been working through a process over a number of years, in fact, prior to my appointment at the university, on our stance on free speech. We did a lot of work on that through the working group that Sir Peter Hunter led. We also looked at that in the context of academic freedom, and we were then looking at it in the context of the broader statute and acts, as well as linking in with some of our other policies around HR and other areas where we have this in the collective. And so huge amount of work on behalf of the university community continues to go on. There's been lots of debates about this as council has been updated. And of course, the landscape is changing externally as well, not just in New Zealand in response to thoughts around things like institutional neutrality. And again, that's been contested again recently, but also a wide range of definitions on this, particularly around the work of free speech, academic freedom, and where those two things sometimes get conflated. So we have had a really good debate, continues to be something that we're working on, and we've taken away the feedback from Senate. We did go through a wide consultation on the policy, and it was a policy that Senate asked for. And so we do continue to work with Senate on that and the broader community, of course, because free speech is more a broad perspective than the academic freedom one, which simply refers to our academics and students. So that work will continue. We'll come back to council again once we've worked through the next steps on that. And I think that's enough to say on that. And I'll leave the remainder of that report as read, and we'll come back to the issues in relation to the CFT.
Sure. Julia, was there something you wanted to raise?
Yes, it wasn't actually about the academic freedom. It was about Andrew Jull's asking for a notice of motion to be included in the agenda for the Senate meeting on ethical investment, which was not included because it was considered not to be an academic matter and therefore not within the purview of or scope of Senate to consider. But what we've cited for that opinion is just one lawyer's opinion, so he hasn't given us a statutory definition or talked about any case law. And I think whether something is an academic matter is itself an academic question on which council should decide. And of course would have to seek advice from Senate as to whether that's an academic matter. And I think there is an argument that it is an academic matter. Certainly the University of Canterbury thought it was. So I'm not expressing an opinion on whether it is. I'm just saying it's not an out there proposition. And there are other arguments as well. The ethical responsibilities of academic institutions, including our own responsibilities to serve our community and create globally transformative impacts, our values of manaakitanga and so on, our sustainability commitment, the educational impact that we can model, basically aligning financial practices with our ethical values, and of course our reputation and credibility, which for academic institutions is based on integrity and ethical behaviour. So that goes to our social licence to operate. So it's really just a point that it shouldn't be a decision for one lawyer. That's actually a decision. What an academic matter is a decision for Senate. So I would suggest that before Andrew Jull's motion goes to Senate, that the question goes to Senate as to whether that would be an academic matter.
So Julia, thank you for that. Can I just be clear about what was decided at the Senate meeting? So our registrar, who is Adrian, of course, did make a communication on this around it not being a motion for Senate, but we didn't say that we haven't done that work. And so that work has been done, and we have actually responded to requests for information, both in the foundation and the university, about those particular questions of investment and ethical investment. It was actually that the motion wasn't a motion for Senate. So I might just ask Adrian and Tim to comment on that, because I think most people, and I did raise this as an all-staff Zoom, that work has been done and we have responded to those requests openly and responded to open letters. So it's not that we haven't done that work that you've referred to, it's that we didn't take the motion at Senate because it wasn't a place for that sort of motion, but that doesn't mean the work hasn't been done. And maybe Tim and Adrian might want to just comment on either of those two things, Julia, and thank you for that.
So Tim or Adrian, who would like to start? Or I can start if you like. I am aware that the first thing I would say, Julia, is that the foundation is independent of the university. The university cannot direct, and as Andrew's motion quite rightly, isn't asking us to direct the foundation to do anything, but we can't direct the foundation to do anything. I am aware, though, that the foundation has received letters asking them to essentially identify whether they, whether they have any financial products or companies that are involved with either A or B in that motion, and that they are having that work done and are in the process of responding to the letters that they have received. But Adrian and Tim, I don't know if you would like to comment.
Yeah, no, I just echo the fact that the foundation is independent and subject to its own governance. I do know they have been working through responses to the letters. I don't think I can speak on their behalf, and I know they've been working through this and continue to work on addressing the concerns and the follow-on letters that have been submitted. So really, I think I can't really say much more than that, other than I do know from speaking to some of the trustees that they are obviously taking this very seriously and working diligently to respond to the letters as they come through.
I just say, I guess my point is not a point about the substance of things. It's really a point about the process. That yes, you can't put Andrew, or maybe you don't want to put Andrew's motion to the Senate meeting, but whether or not it's an academic matter is a decision for Senate to advise council on. Does that make sense? And if it advises council on it being an academic matter, then Andrew would be able to put that motion, whatever one might think about the outcome of that.
Yeah, okay. The advice I've received is that it's the Vice-Chancellor's decision whether or not to put a matter on the order paper, and the Vice-Chancellor, if she decides not to, needs to put it, as we have here, on the next council agenda. So for whatever reason, I think the Vice-Chancellor has that right. In terms of the statutory functions as well, the advice that I was given was that this was outside the statutory functions of council and Senate. But you know, that is the advice that I received from the General Council.
I think that that's the General Council's opinion, but really it's for our council to decide whether or not it's an academic matter, if that makes sense.
So you're saying it's for the Senate to decide it's an academic matter?
No, it's for the Senate to advise council on academic matters, and whether something is an academic matter is a decision for council, essentially.
I think the advice I received, Julia, though, went further than whether it was an academic matter or not. It goes to the point that it's outside the statutory functions.
That's right.
But it's outside the statutory functions because it's not considered to be an academic matter.
Not just because of that, but because actually it was about advice for an independent legal entity.
The foundation's independent, Julia.
Right.
Yeah,
That's the advice. It's not just outside because of that. It's actually because of what Tim said. They're an independent legal entity.
Right.
Yeah, but as I say, to give council some comfort and
on the agenda,
yeah, I mean the foundation are, as Tim said, they are taking the matter seriously and are responding to the having their investment advisor do the work to find out what the answer is to the questions and taking it seriously.
And in fact, even though it was outside the statutory requirement, I still felt it was important to put it to the council on the council agenda and for them to see that that was part of the discussion that was taking place, Julia.
By the way, as the council rep on the foundation, I'm happy to answer any questions about the foundation's position on these issues. But that wasn't Julia's original question.
No,
so
that's
I don't
right.
want to go back.
And I don't think that's appropriate necessarily at council. I think
mine was really a question about process.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's clarified, Julia, given the nature of the foundation.
Okay. Are there any other questions other than relating to the curriculum framework transformation with respect to the minutes of the 16th of September? Okay. All right, then let's deal with we have the minutes with respect to the curriculum framework framework. No, I'm not sure it's one way or the other. We have the motion that was passed at the meeting of the 27th of August. We then have the subsequent meeting of Senate on the 16th of September, where there were, in terms of the, we have everything that we were asked to note, a resolution that we note, and we have the various papers. We also have in 8.2 a paper taking us through the various matters around, the curriculum framework transformation, all of which, some of which we've had the opportunity to have a good discussion about in the briefing. So I think the question, I think there are two questions now, dealing first, are there further matters that people would like to raise and discuss around this? I mean, essentially, if I could just summarize the discussion that we had, in the briefing was that there was concern expressed on the 27th of August at the special meeting around the course optimization process that was being run out of the PDDC. And there was, and as Julia has pointed out, there was general concern about some of the processes that have been taking place around the curriculum framework transformation. But subsequent to that meeting, the decision was made to halt the process that was being run through the PDDC office, and that's reflected in the minutes of the 16th of September, where it is acknowledged that that process was being done, and that the speed of the process and communications around it were poor and inconsistent, and that this raised concern with staff and students. And what we're being told is that work has now it's not going through the PDDC. It's now all of that's going through the normal faculty processes, and the deans of the faculties at that second meeting confirmed the work was taking place within the faculties. So but as we discussed in the briefing, this is still a process. I think that it is important that it takes place, and I think everybody needs to be, we need to be making sure that what we're offering are relevant, that relevant for the people that the students that we're educating. We also, in the paper in 8.2, there is discussion about the Waipapa Taumataro courses and the transdisciplinary courses, and we had a good discussion of those courses, understanding really the content, how they were being delivered, and what was going on with those courses, and understand that with the Waipapa Taumataro course, there is a single course being piloted at the moment. It's going to be reviewed at the end of that course, and the intention is that there will be the Waipapa Taumataro courses. There will be one in every faculty, except for the law faculty, I believe, where most people will be doing, or the people, I guess, coming into intermediate or into conjoint would do the course in the faculty they come in through. And then with respect to the TD course, the transdisciplinary course, there are 2 being piloted at the moment. There will be 6 being piloted next year. And then once again, there will be reviews of those done before they go into the curriculum in 2026. So I think that is a summary of the discussion that we had around those courses. And so I'm looking for, are there any other questions or discussion that people wish to have around those matters. Any points that they'd like to make and make sure that are made in this part of the meeting. Hala, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I guess something that we didn't quite discuss was there's obviously the pilots are happening now for Waipapa Taumatoro as well as a transdisciplinary course. Has there been any sort of positive feedback from the students? What have we been hearing from students who are actually undertaking this course? Do we have any of that data yet?
That would be
Bridget, is that something that you can ask, or Dawn or Bridget?
Yes, so from the Waipapa Taumatoro courses, they've had a couple of evaluations along the way, and it's quite a structured process of how that information is going to be collected. So far positive. The two TD pilots have also had an initial feedback, which has been quite interesting. Landing positively, interesting from the some stage 3 students doing it, because you can do it as part of a genuine for the pilot. And the teaching staff feel that it was interesting that the stage 3 students have already kind of quite sort of fixed in their disciplinary way of thinking. So that was interesting. I think also some reflections on assessment activities. So far, actually the one of them has had a 90% attendance rate within the seminars, which is unheard of. The lecture attendance rate is about 40%. It's still higher than what we'd see ordinarily. So that's really encouraging. So they're thinking about what they can do with that and why they're getting such good attendance within that smaller group teaching. So definitely some good feedback, some good things to reflect on and also to carry forward.
Julia?
Sorry, you alluded to this before, Cecilia, but I did want to put on the public record that I had made the point that we have some very well-developed top-down processes for developing strategies like this in this institution, but don't have the same robust ground-up processes, which means that we may not have the robust consultation processes that we think we've built into something when we consult with faculty heads or associate deans, and that to acknowledge that the way that the CFT has come through Senate has been challenging for some academics, and that it's come in pieces, sometimes hasn't been well signposted, and the full potential effects of the implementation on other courses didn't really come into focus till the end of the process. So that has left some people feeling as though they haven't had the input that they would have liked into the CFT process.
Jonathan, okay, yeah, and I think it's important for us to remember that the CFT process, and we talked about course optimization, we talked about the Waipapa Taumatoro and also the TD courses, but we didn't talk in the briefing about the other elements of the curriculum framework transformation, which obviously include the graduate profile and also include the, I apologize, I'm having trouble reaching
Relational learning.
also the flexi, what was that? The flexi, the flexi choice thing. Apologies for calling it the flexi choice thing. Yeah, flexi choice. That was one part that we had not discussed in terms of flexi choice and the expanded learnings. Bridget?
It's just in response to Julia's acknowledgement of that. We have had a grassroots approach in that. We've had huge teams working on this across the university, and I think perhaps one of the most transformative parts about this whole process is that we have engaged and faculties acknowledged that not everybody may have felt like they did that, but we have had faculty workshops, we've had specialist working groups, we had 80 people involved from across the university and from the outset. So there have been hundreds of staff have attended workshops. To your point, flexi choice, so that is something that we're still refining some thinking around that, also the expanded learning. So they are pieces that still will have some decisions to be made, and they will go through our processes, take on board the signalling. So thank you for that, Julia. So we're going to think about ways that we can signal more clearly. So in the Education Committee, there's always a CFT update, but we'll make it more explicit where it relates to specific elements. So I think that signposting might hopefully help. And I know when there's pages and pages of me at Senate, I do try and draw things to Senate's attention, but I'll certainly make sure that it's more explicitly when it's in relation to CFT. So hopefully that will assist.
Gemma.
Thank you for adding that in, Bridget. I wanted to kind of reiterate Julia's point about the process being poor and acknowledge management's response, that it was a poor process and that changes have been made since that time to take a different path. And I also wanted to have in part my support of CFT more widely. We have come so far over the last 3 years, and I really appreciate all the collaboration of academic and professional staff who have gone into making all the taumata happen. And as you said, Cecilia, there is many different parts to this framework, and it's really exciting that we're coming to this point of fruition, and disappointing that we've had a sidetrack, but also it's a good opportunity for those who might not have been up with the play to come into the conversation too. Thank you.
Right, Hala.
Yeah, I also similarly to Gemma, I would just want to acknowledge sort of CFT. Even in the Senate meeting, the students did really vouch for CFT just because of the students' engagement throughout the process. They have like a regular slot in the student council meeting, student consultative group as well. I think that there's been a lot of consultation with students, and the fact that their pilot sessions are constantly being evaluated, I think is a very good reflection. And probably we're evaluating these courses more than we do our regular courses, which I think is a great stepping stone. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of say that publicly too.
Yeah. So, Cecilia, I just had a clarifying question. Is
Yep.
the new pilots limited to undergraduate, or is it contemplated that that would also eventually include master's and PhD students?
That's a really good question. I'm happy to answer that, Cecilia. So what we're looking at is, so the in respect to the Waipapa Tāmata Row courses, is that your question, Jonathan? So we are looking at in the plans to develop some sort of module that could be used for doctoral students, building on those taumata. Also, that could be used for staff coming to the university from outside New Zealand, who it all might seem a little bit of a mystery. And also to think about how postgraduate students, well, it will be in a not in the same way, but they have access to that material to use, because it's been so beautifully done and it's had so considered in the way it's been developed. So
yeah,
that's
so TBD is what I'm hearing, to be determined, but certainly under consideration. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so what we have here is we have in front of us a motion where Senate is asking we have in a way we have two contradictory motions come from Senate, right? We have the one of the 27th of August where Senate was asking us to pause the implementation of the CFT, and the thing that was emphasized in that motion was around the implications of the proposed course optimization processes, though I accept that, as Julia said, there has been some confusion and some concern about other elements. But then we have the report of Senate of the 16th of September, where we have the various components. We have effectively the answer with management responding to the concern raised by Senate on the 26th of August, saying, okay, we've gone back to the normal faculty process. So, that we've halted, running that, being, generating that process, if you like. And then we have the discussion, and we have the Senate recommending to Council that it receive and note the papers regarding the curriculum transformation. And those papers relate to the program overview and how it's going to operate, the fact that there's the pilot courses, when the pilot courses are going to be reviewed, and talks about in more detail about the transdisciplinary paper as well. So what I would intend to do is to, first of all, to with everybody understanding that history, I would be moving to what I would be moving is to say that the implementation of the curriculum framework transformation not be paused, but I think that as part of the resolution that we pass, we should note the concerns that have been raised, and we should note the management response, particularly around the course optimization process, and then we should note that other concerns have been raised. And also I think that one of the things that we can do to give ourselves future comfort is that we can, and it does, there is part of this already in the resolution that's in the curriculum framework transformation paper. It talks about the further advice, things coming to the March 2025 meeting. But I think we can perhaps put more detail around that and ask not only that, particularly around the elements, I think we can specifically say we want to get a report on the review of the Waipapa Taumata Road course that's been piloted this year. Then I think we can ask that we get a report on the review of the transdisciplinary courses. Now, I don't know whether that's taking place this year or next year. And then we can ask that there be a review be done at the end of 2025 of all of the courses, the Waipapa Taumata Road and the TD courses that have been presented, and ask that for a report on that to come back to Council. So that's my suggestion as to how we handle this. Now, Julia.
I just wanted a couple of points of clarification. So just to confirm, we have stopped our urgent course optimization process. That's just gone back into the normal thing. But the second question is, on my reading of the papers, we're bringing the transdisciplinary courses back through Senate before. Is that correct?
The regulations,
Yeah.
So we haven't, the regulations are under development, so they will come through
Right.
Senate via education committee.
They haven't been through Senate yet, Julia.
Okay.
Cecilia, I'm happy to second your motion.
So that's the motion I'm proposing to put. And is there any commentary on that motion?
Just to clarify, Chancellor, so you're not putting the motion on the order paper? You're wanting to change that?
Yes, that's correct. I am changing the motion on the order. Well, to be fair, the motion related to 27.8 says to be determined following council discussion.
No, 8.2, we've got the motion.
Oh yes, 8.2. Yes, I guess I'm going to put 8.2. I guess I'm expanding 8.2, if you like, and I apologize, I've now lost my page.
Yeah, maybe could we go through 8.2 and just so we put down which ones you're wanting to change?
Yes, exactly. Yep, absolutely. So what I'm proposing to do, right, is I am proposing to start by, and we'll put 6.1 and 8.2 together. What I'm proposing to do is start by noting the motion passed by Senate at their meeting of August 27th, noting that the curriculum framework transformation has been discussed with Council in the briefings, noting that as confirmed at the Senate meeting, on September the 16th. The course optimization process, as you described it, Julia, the urgent course optimization process run by the PDDC has been stopped, and the decisions about courses and programs are now continuing through the normal faculty process. Acknowledge the concerns raised by Senate and encourage management to continue to engage with all areas of the university on the CFT. And then there is a, I would, in addition, I would consider, this is up to people whether they want this or not, noting, however, that it is important that the courses and programs at the university be reviewed regularly to maintain a contemporary suite of offerings for students and to ensure coherence and relevance of the qualifications being offered by the university and to ensure the continued financial viability of the university. And then request, and then I would be requesting that the council receive at its March 2025 meeting a report on the reviews of the pilot WTR and TD courses that were run this semester. Request that a review be conducted on the WTR courses at the end of 2025 and a report on that review be presented to council at its March 2026 meeting. And request that council, and then on that basis resolve that following the discussion, the implementation of the CFT should continue in the manner set out in the paper presented to council on the CFT at item 8.2. So that's my resolution. And then that resolution, and then I would go to the resolutions that are in 8.2 after that resolution. So I would propose to put that resolution first, and Kathy has said that she would second that resolution. So is there any discussion on that resolution? Is there any concern from management that we are asking for reports? Is that going to, I don't like to put an additional burden, but I would have expected that what we're asking for is reports of reviews that I'm expecting are already taking place.
No, I think it's important that we document that request, Cecilia.
Just to say, yes, I agree.
Okay, and Bridget's nodding because I think she's running the reviews. All right. Okay. So could I have a show of hands to show if people are in favor of that resolution? Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. Okay, now I'll move to the resolutions that are in 8.2. And this is moving that we note that the CFT program is a framework comprising a number of elements. Note that Senate and Council have already endorsed policies and regulations relating to elements of CFT, including the graduate profile, the Waipapa Taumata Road course and program regulations, which are now in effect for the 2025 academic year. Note that other elements of the CFT are yet to be finalised and considered by Senate and Council, including the transdisciplinary course regulations. And but I think it's just the regulations, right? There's a ... there, but it's just the regulations. And approve continuation of work for the approved CFT elements coming into effect in 2025, and request that management and Senate and the faculty subcommittees to provide further advice on the direction and benefits of the CFT program at its March 2025 meeting through the normal channels, and that whilst preparatory work will need to continue in the meantime, such advice is to be received prior to further policy and regulatory decisions being made. So Valerie, you had a quick, yeah?
I just have it's a very tiny detail. I just want to point out that just because I was tracking them both as you read them out, as written in the agenda, what you read out is broadly similar, but not exactly the same wording, is at the top of the 8.2 paper. But the
Oh, I'm sorry. What I read out was on the agenda, and I should have been reading out what was on the paper.
yeah, so I'm just saying is that the two are not, whatever, somewhere along the way, the wording is not quite the same, but they're broadly similar.
Right. Okay. Let me go back to the paper. Okay. So we've got, so where does it differ? Help me.
The paper does not, so on the agenda, there's a bullet point that starts with approves, and that is not in the.
Oh, right. Yeah. No,
But
that's,
instead there's a
yeah.
note that implementation work continues.
Yeah.
So it changes it from an approves to a notes, essentially.
Right.
I just don't want this to be a thing afterwards when people go, hang on.
Yeah. No. That's a good point. Okay. So essentially what we're looking at is what's on page 76 of Diligent, not what's in the agenda. But I think I would want to change. I mean, obviously I've made, there's that second note. I would alter slightly in the way I'd altered it on the first one.
Happy to support your motion.
Okay, so this is the second motion, and I think the right. And I think we're noted, right, okay. And so I have Kathy supporting my second motion, and do I have could I please ask people to have by a show of hands if they're comfortable with that second motion? Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that it has taken some time to get through the meeting. Okay. Now we're and also I thank management for all the work that is going into this, and I also thank particularly our academic and professional and student reps for their feedback to the council, because I think that's really important feedback, and good feedback for management to get as well. So thank you for expressing that. So now we're at does anybody have any general business for part A of the meeting? No? Okay, then we'll go to, does anybody require a leave of absence for the 9th of December? Julia?
Yes, I won't be in town for the 9th of December.
Okay. Anybody else? And Wendy, you'll be able to check with Julia, Anot Nene, and Rob McDonald. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I am going to then move that the public be excluded from Part B of this meeting, given the subject matter to be considered and the need for confidentiality for certain of these matters for the operation of the university. And more specifically, the resolution that is set out there in the agenda, and that Adrian Clinnan, Professors Linton and Bloomfield, Andrew Phipps, Tim Blewett, Pamela Moss, Helen Catanach, Anthony Brandon, and Wendy Verscheren, and I would think Andrew Rose, and no, we don't need media. Okay, Andrew, do I need media? Yeah, and Media Productions be allowed to remain for Part B of the meeting to the extent that they wish to and are required to do so. And I'm going to move that. And could I ask Hala to second that, please? Thank you very much.
So that we stay on this link, Cecilia, but the live stream's finished.
Yes, so we're now waiting for the live stream to close. Is that right, Wendy? Or we can ask Anthony, can you